One of those things where Harvard does this a lot, where they make things optional, but it's not really optional if you're able to do it. So the Harvard application, the college application, all it is, it's like the easiest application out there. It's like the common app and then an optional essay. And so a lot of people think this optional essay means you shouldn't write anything, but you should still write it.
Right. 你心中是否有一个名校情节？你是不是也想上哈佛？那么这一期视频就是为你而准备的。哈佛毕业生聊名校申请，我是求真教育的 Francis。我们的迪迪老师是货真价实的哈佛本科毕业生，他主修的是心理学，辅修计算机，也就是 CS。很多我们的申请的这个学生呢和家长都对迪迪老师的背景特别感兴趣，那希望多了解一下他在高中的时候是怎么准备这个大学生活的，对吧？是怎么去做申请呀？那都拿了哪一些的 AP 课程？都做了哪一些义工？都有哪一些课外活动 ？ACT 和 SAT 的区别？最后怎么去选专业那这一些呢，我们都在今天的视频里面都会讨论到。那如果这一期的视频反响很好的话呢，我们会做一系列的类似的视频和采访。那欢迎大家多多留言和提问，那也可以联系我们的客服老师。谢谢大家，下面请看我们的正片。It's good to have you here, Didi. Why don't you tell me what's your name, a little background about yourself?
Yeah, so I studied at Harvard, studied psychology with a minor in computer science. In all 4 years of college, I continued dancing, so I was very involved in the dance community at Harvard. Also pretty involved with the international community, did a couple of international conferences. It's pretty much about me.
那你在就是说哈佛的时候，你为什么会选择 psychology？然后作为你的 major，你是一去就想好的吗？
不是 ，So 我本来去哈佛的时候想学那个 government studies. Yeah, so I wanted to study international relations. And so I took a couple of classes at Harvard regarding government, regarding international relations. Decided I didn't like it that much. And so I was kind of at a loss of where I would choose to study.
Right.
And so I explored a couple of things. I knew I enjoyed social sciences, so studying how people work and how people think. So I ended up taking a couple of sociology classes, psychology classes. And I think I liked how psychology was a little bit more structured than other social sciences because it's very experiment-based, results-based. And so I ended up choosing psychology as my major. I think a lot of it in choosing a major, especially at a liberal arts school, is just being really willing to explore and also talking with the department staff. So I found that I connected with the staff at the psychology department the most. So I think that was the best choice for me in the end.
Great. So when did you start planning transfer to another major?
So at Harvard, you have to choose your major by the end of first semester sophomore year.
Okay.
So I actually had 3 semesters to take classes and choose. So I took a government class my first semester. I really didn't like it. And so starting my second semester, I started switching around. I really took I took a history class, an English class, math classes, computer science classes, econ classes. And then kind of settled between sociology and psychology beginning of my sophomore year, and then by mid-sophomore year I decided I like psychology best.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I'm asking this question is because lots of our students, high school students, they were struggling to pick a major at college, and they thought once they picked that major, that's it. But they had no idea, what that major is about and what the career path is. So I think you're a great example to tell them that they can actually try different classes, try different majors, see if they like it. Right?
Yeah, I think that's the good part about American schools, especially. Most schools, you don't have to confirm a major until sophomore year, and then it's usually pretty flexible to switch majors.
Right. It's actually pretty far away, the CS major from psychology. Right? How many extra classes you have to take to get a minor degree?
Yeah, very few. So like I said, part of the reason why I chose CS was because it was very easy in terms of requirements. I only had to take 4 extra classes. And actually one of my classes double counted for psych, because I took a couple of design classes, so like UI UX design, and it counted for like a psych elective. So it was super convenient, and I knew I was the type of person who wanted to like take as many cool classes at school as possible, because Harvard is so known for having like really weird electives and stuff. So I wanted to keep my schedule as open as possible.
I'll say for our students that who want to major in CS, like what kind of prep work do you recommend to do while in high school?
I would say that like having a basic understanding of CS is quite helpful. But I do know like a lot of my friends started taking CS in college, and the courses are quite intensive, so I think you can catch up pretty quickly. But again, it is helpful to have some basic knowledge, especially if you're very interested in CS, doing like your own coding projects, and then hackathons. I know a lot of high schools will participate in hackathons, and so doing those types of things while you're in high school can be also very helpful and good on your resume.
I see. 所以在平时上学之外，你有其他的一些课外活动吗？
Yeah, 所以我上学之外，我就平常会去跳舞，所以我从小就一直学芭蕾舞，然后在大学也一直坚持下去。我高中的 schedule 大概就是每天上完学就回家，或者是就马上去我的舞蹈学院，然后在那儿上2-3堂课吧，然后回家做点作业，然后再睡觉。然后还需要有些天会去 volunteering 或者是做别的课外活动。Yeah。
那高中的时候你大概几点放学？大概
大概3点半吧。3
点半，然后训练可能2-3个小时。
所以平常就是8点到3点半上学，然后可能会3点半到4点半，like 在家里做作业或者去 volunteer，然后从4点半5点开始我就上芭蕾课，然后芭蕾课完事大概已经8点9点了，回家然后再做完作业。8点9点，哇！然后就1-2点睡觉。
所以没有太多的时间让你睡觉，是不是？对，因为我们很多的学生和家长以为来美国读高中，比国内其实轻松很多，其实看起来也并不是。
Yeah， 也并不是，因为我觉得在中国就是特别看重那个像 academics 那方面的考试但是在美国就是成绩很重要，但是还是更重要的，我觉得就是培养孩子做一些like 课外活动，所以 sports 或者是跳舞或者是学音乐那样的，也看得挺重的。
OK， 那除了跳舞，你还有参加其他的 sports 吗？
No， 我是不喜欢 sports 的。
音乐呢
？Yeah， 所以我就从小也是学钢琴的，但是我有点不喜欢，我的妈妈一直是逼我学钢琴的，但是我就跟她说，如果我就考过这10级，因为在加州有10级嘛，如果考过10级的话，我就不用弹了，所以8年级以后就不弹了。
所以你8年级就已经考过10级。
然后我在高中的时候也吹过笛子，吹 flute，我在参加 band 参加了2年吧，然后其他的也没多少，我就经常会 tutor 挣点钱。
tutor 是在 high school 的时候
tutor。Yeah， 所以有些是 peer tutoring， 然后我也 tutor 过一些小孩儿。
OK， 哇所以听起来其实是没有很多时间睡觉的。
然后加上还是想跟朋友玩嘛，然后跟他们聊天，就没有时间睡觉。
没有太多时间睡觉。对，那你是怎么去安排你的时间呢？你有什么好的建议给就是学弟学妹们？
所以 time management 就是必须是你自己想做的东西 ，right？ 所以我见过很多父母就是想逼着他们的孩子 like time manage， 但是我觉得还是就你得自己想着 like 你的 priorities like most of the times 会有一些 sacrifice, right? So 有时候会 sacrifice sleep, right? Like I was very fine with sacrificing my sleep. It was like totally okay for me. But sometimes it means like sacrificing time with your friends, or I think the most important thing is like getting your priorities straight. Like what do you need to finish by today? And like 我的妈妈也是有时候会逼着我，但是我就一直跟她说，就是如果需要完成的事，我肯定会完成，所以你就不要逼我做这样。Sometimes it would be like, you know, like an hour before it was due, I would finish it, but I would still finish it, right? So I think it's making sure that you set yourself to your own standards and like always maintaining those standards for yourself.
Wow. And then about volunteer work, like how do you like find those volunteer work, and how many hours in a week you usually commit to that?
Yeah, so for me, volunteering was pretty casual, I would say. A lot of times in high school, there are clubs that will help you with volunteering. So I actually started a club my junior year, I think, called, it was a chapter of National Honor Society. And so that is a club that's based primarily on providing volunteering opportunities to students. So there's a lot of volunteering opportunities within like American high schools, but also a lot of times just a Google search, there's like plenty of communities around that need help. And so a lot of times like for tutoring, I would tutor for free sometimes as volunteer. It's also helpful, I think, to like think about other communities that you care about. I think makes it easier to want to volunteer, because sometimes it can feel like a chore that you're doing.
Right.
But I think it's best to do something that you are personally more interested in, so it's fun to do.
I see. 所以你在高中的时候有上了多少节 AP 课
？14堂。
14堂 AP。你觉得选了14节 AP 课对于当时你申请大学是有帮助的吗？
我觉得是肯定有帮助的。
有帮助。
但是我觉得还是 like college application 不是一个 肯定的一个东西 right? So I think that in Dublin High, I was like 应该算是挺优秀的一个学生吧
yeah.
所以我就是上了14堂 AP 课，我的 ACT 都挺好的。但是像我申请大学的时候，我还是很多学校被拒绝了，所以我觉得还是我看过我的 Harvard application actually, so Harvard students can go in and look at their Harvard application and see what like the reviewers noted. And it seemed like a brief summary of my application would be like, she has the academic rigor necessary to attend Harvard, but there needs to be something more, right? And so I think they got that something more from like my college essays and like talking about dance, talking about my like tutoring experiences. And then also the interview was really important. I think my interviewer liked me, and so she wrote a really good note. So I think a big thing about the American application process is that because it's holistic, right, like 全面的，所以I think that it's very important that you have like a base level of academics, right? But there has to be some, like some personality that shines through.
Do you mind sharing like what's your overall GPA?
Yeah, so my unweighted GPA, I'm pretty sure was a 4.0. I like got A's all throughout high school. And then it's weighted by like the amount of AP classes you take. I'm not sure, maybe like 4.5, 4.4, yeah.
How about your SAT scores?
Yeah, so SAT I got a 2310 on.
Out of 2400.
Out of 2400, yeah. So, like separated wise, I like did not do very well in writing because I have really bad grammar. So I got 800 in critical reading, 800 math, and then 710 in the grammar section. But I actually didn't submit my SAT for a lot of places. I submitted my ACT.
Oh, wow.
Because I got full score on the ACT. So
I see.
Yeah. So it was like not really a question. I was like, I should just submit this one.
All right. Yeah, talking about SAT and ACT, so I think for Harvard 2021, it will be test optional. What's your take on that?
So I think the reason they make it test optional is that Harvard wants to make their school very accessible to people of all demographics and all social classes. And there's a lot of social classes now, like especially lower class, working class, that either don't have the money or don't have the ability to like have their kids study for the SAT and like send their kids to a SAT testing center. And so I think that's why they waived it. But I would say if you are able to take the SAT, I would still suggest that you take it. Like it's one of those things where Harvard does this a lot, where they make things optional, but it's not really optional if you're able to do it. So, for example, the Harvard application, the college application, all it is, it's like the easiest application out there. It's like the common app and then an optional essay. And so a lot of people think this optional essay means you shouldn't write anything, but you should still write it.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking you that question because I got lots of questions from my students that lots of schools are doing score option or like they don't require SAT, ACT, so I don't have to study for it. So people, you have to study for it. Yeah.
This is good for people who are able to take it because it shows that like, you know, even though you didn't have to take it, you chose to study and like work on it, and I think that shows a little bit of a better image on yourself.
So you took both ACT and SAT. What's the difference?
So SAT is a little bit more, it emphasizes writing or in like language, whereas the ACT emphasizes more of science. So the ACT has a science section where the SAT does not. The ACT also tends to be a little bit more straightforward, and the essay prompts are usually shorter and like a little bit easier to write about, whereas the SAT I think can be a little bit more difficult and convoluted. But I think especially as like an international student, if you're able to do well on the SAT, it can show like very positively for you.
I see.